Good morning, everybody. How's it going today? Get me set up here. All right. Figured I'd do a little bit different stream today. I just had this collection of things that I had watched recently. I guess contrary to popular opinion, I do watch things not for the channel. It's not very often that I do get to watch stuff just for my own sake, but I occasionally do. I get to watch some things that are not channel oriented. Most of the things that I watch, I would say probably a good 80% of the movies that I watch on a regular basis are specifically for the channel, especially when some of the videos that I do are 10 movies long or something like that. So that obviously takes a while. So, hey guys, so I don't really have as much time to just chill and watch just random things. I'm sorry, Stephen, I interrupted you watching The Human Centipede. How dare I? That's actually a good thing. You need a break from watching Human Centipede movies. But I've watched not a ton of movies this past year, but I did watch enough that were not for the channel that I just thought I'd talk about and point out some of the ones I thought were the worst and some of the ones I thought that I watched were the best. Although I'll be honest with you, most of the stuff that I have watched this year did not impress me terribly. There haven't really been that much this year that really bowled me over. And quite a few of the things I watched are not actually from this year. They might have been older things. But I will start. Do you guys want me to start at the worst? Do you want me to start at the best? What do you want to? Where should I begin? Should I tell you about the best movies that I've seen this year or the worst movies? What do you want to hear about first? I will point that to you to ask in the chat. Thank you, Peter, for liking Dead Last. Dead Last is my favorite video to put together. That's the most complicated series to put together, so I appreciate it. So, all right. Jeez. All right, I will. Mike Bell asked about watching Eat Locals. I have not watched Eat Locals yet, but I do have it. I have it, but I have not yet started watching it, but I will. I've had a couple of votes for best to worst, so we'll start with the best movies and go down to the worst. I have 11 movies. I've watched more than this, but I have 11 movies that I pulled that I thought were worth talking about. And I will start with the best one. The best movie that I've seen this year in a horror setting, because I've seen a couple of movies that were not horror that I thought were pretty good, but in a horror movie setting. The best movie that I've seen this year, and before I get to that, let me break down my how I rate movies, because I do rate movies on a 5-star system, and 5 stars is reserved for very, very few movies. Very few movies ever get a 5-star from me. Jaws is a 5-star movie. The Thing is a 5-star movie. That's the caliber of movie that you have to be in order to get 5 stars in my world. You have to be that freaking good. If it's a movie that I just really, really like, it's not a 5-star movie. Those are 4-star movies, or possibly 4.5 if they have that extra push or whatever. But to get 5 stars is nearly impossible. Exorcist is 5 stars. I will agree with that. Exorcist is a 5-star. Those are the movies that are just all-time classics that I could watch over and over and over again, that are amazing movies those are 5. 4 stars are great movies that are just really impactful, that I enjoy quite a bit, that I love, that are excellent movies, but just don't quite push up into that extra level. And 3 stars is a good movie. It's a good average film that's enjoyable to watch, not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. And, it's okay. It's all right. And then the 3.5ers, which I think is something that I have quite a few of on here, is a movie that's a little bit better than average, but not quite great enough to be in the great category. For me to give it 4 stars, it means I really loved it and I would watch it again. Usually a 4-star movie for me is a movie that I'll watch by myself and I'll be like, that was great. I need to watch this with somebody now because I need to show them. If I'm like showing a movie to somebody else and I want them to watch it with me, that is a 4-star movie. And the only 4-star movie that I have out of these 11 is Wolf of Snow Hollow, which I thought was a great movie. I really enjoyed it. I would actually probably have given it 4.5 stars, except for one thing, which I will talk about in a little bit. But Wolf of Snow Hollow is sort of a mystery movie, but it's also mostly a character study. It's about a small mountain town and a series of werewolf attacks, or what appears to be werewolf attacks happening in this town. But the main focus of the movie is the main character. He's the police sheriff of this, again, very small town. It's like a ski community kind of thing. And people are dying in his town, horribly mangled on a full moon. So clearly it's a werewolf story, or is it? And I think that's one of the great things. The reason why this movie goes into the 4-star category for me is that character work. The movie's by, I'm going to forget, Jim Cummings. He's the guy that made a movie called Thunder Road? Forget the name of it. But it also was a really solid movie. And he also plays the main character, and he plays it so well. It's about a man who's at the tail end of things. He himself is sort of a monster because he's an alcoholic and having these issues and spiraling downwards. So just hugely great movie. Only reason why I wouldn't give this movie above that is that the resolution of the mystery of what's going on in the town isn't that. The reveal is not satisfying. Like, what happens after the reveal is very satisfying, but the reveal is not satisfying. But beyond that, I loved the movie very much. I would recommend you check it out. It's it's my top movie that I've seen this year so far. And I think it's from last year. I think it's from 2020. But it was a excellent movie, so I recommend it highly. Again, it's Wolf of Snow Hollow. The next movie down that I have here, which is 3.5 stars, which is another movie I really enjoyed, but I just thought was pretty flawed, was Ready or Not, which I think is a movie that a lot of people really liked. And I did too. I really liked Ready or Not. I just don't think it stems into that great territory, but 3.5 stars, again, is a really solid rating. If there was such thing as a 3 3/4 rating, that this might stem into there. But if you haven't seen Ready or Not, it was a pretty popular movie, and it was a lot of fun. My beef with it is that I thought that everything in this movie was top notch. Everything was top notch. Everything looked amazing. Everything, the set direction, the art direction, the cinematography, all of that was gorgeous. The acting was great. All of the acting was really great. But performances all around from everybody was rock solid. But the script itself was just really thin. It was paper thin. And I almost wish that same level of detail that went into every other aspect of this movie went into the script, because the script's fine. It's fine. It's a good, Mike Bell just called it popcorn horror, and I totally agree. It's a good popcorn movie. Just sit down and watch it. But I think my issue is that the rest of the movie is presented as a more elevated than popcorn horror experience, but then the script is just that. And I almost wish that the script was at the level of everything else in the movie, because it was such a next level movie in terms of everything else that I thought was great. And again, I think even just like the message of it was kind of odd, because I wanted it to sort of be a You're Next kind of a thing, where it was you have this character that's in this rough situation, but it turns out to be the wrong person to put in that situation. But the fact of the matter is that her character would not have survived 75% of the movie were it not for people helping her out. And I would have kind of liked to have seen the movie more be about her using her wits and skills to overcome. And I also would have liked to see her kind of go up against the family a little bit more, but she ended up just kind of fighting the butler 75% of the time, which was, I mean, again, I don't have any problems with it. I just wanted to see more. I wanted to see her go against this family, but the family mostly just sat in a room. And I think that there's probably something subtextual to say to that, where, you know, you have the rich and it ends up being the butler who's not part of the rich and wealthy family that does it all. So there you go. But I did like it. Very enjoyable movie. It's a fun movie if you haven't seen it. Stephen Bell hasn't seen Your Next yet. I did like Your Next better. I think that they're both two sides of a coin of a very similar concept, where it's kind of just like a bunch of people is sieging on a single person, and one person just being kind of a badass and fighting back. And I really liked it. Your Next is great. I almost wish what would be the most perfect movie is if Your Next had the visual detailing and the visual elements of Ready or Not, but with that script and that characterization. Man, what a movie that would have been. But yes, both enjoyable movies. I would actually give Your Next 4 stars, where I give Ready or Not 3.5 stars. So pretty similar. But it's kind of funny because TP asked if I had seen Werewolves Within, which is actually the next movie that I'm going to talk about. Werewolves Within, which I gave 3.5 stars to as well, just exactly the same as I give Ready or Not a solid 3.5. I just watched Werewolves Within about a week ago, which I thought was really, really fun. It is a fun movie. Again, it's kind of similar in concept to the Wolf of Snow Hollow, in the fact that it's kind of a small town. It seems as if there's a werewolf there. It's in a snowy kind of environment, and it's sort of a mystery. If you were to watch back to back Werewolves Within and Wolf of Snow Hollow, you're basically watching two completely different takes on the same concept. Werewolves Within is a hilarious movie. The comedy is great. All the performances are rock solid. Everyone is fantastic in the movie. The main character is hilarious. Milena Vaintraub, who is sort of the female lead a little bit. She's very funny. Very, very, very nice character. I just wish that the middle of the movie had a little bit more going on. It has a great setup. The ending works, but it does in the middle kind of bounce around a little bit. It takes a little bit too long to get to where it's going. I kept saying in my head, be like, come on, get there. And when it gets there, it's really fun, but it just, it sets everything up nicely, doesn't know what to do with itself for like a half hour. And then once it figures out what to do with itself, just hits on all 4 cylinders until that point. But there is a middle chunk that you will be looking at your watch a little bit. You do get kind of caught up. The performances are still really funny, and the comedy still really works in that section. But the movie kind of stops a little bit dead. But really, really good. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I would say check it out if you haven't seen Werewolves Within. Very fun movie. A couple of things. Brian C. said, "Hey man, thank you very much. Welcome in, Brian C." Joseph Lukowski wants me to get to Warlock, Warlock. I would like to get to Warlock as well too. I've had it on the schedule like once or twice and bumped it for other things. The schedule making process is very difficult. I change it frequently. I do have it penned out very, very well ahead of time. Without revealing what the schedule is, I'm looking at it right now, and I have planned out every single video until November 26th. So that's how far ahead I plan these things. And I've watched everything. I've watched all the movies that I need for the videos all the way until the middle of October. So I plan ahead pretty high. But sometimes, every once in a while, things switch out. Like I have some things that switched out in here. I have some things planned in here for October that may or may not get switched. But eventually, I will do Warlock because I really enjoy the second Warlock movie. The first one's okay, the third one's bad, but the second Warlock movie is so much fun. Anyway, tangent right there. But yes, I definitely want to do it. And Domingos Jr. wants to know about the Fear Street trilogy. I did put that on my list of things to cover, but I don't have any plans for it in the near future. I think that one is a tough one for me to think about, just because it's, which again, I haven't really seen them all yet. I've seen part of the first one, but I haven't yet dove into watching the full thing yet. But it's a little bit tough because the timeline is in the titles, so I feel like it's not so much of a challenge, but it will be something I would like to talk about. But I think maybe I needed a little bit. I think I need a little bit of space between when it's released and when I talk about it. So I will most likely get to it. And then last one I'll talk about here is Martin Sears talk about a Tetsuo Timeline. It is definitely on my list. I would love to talk about Tetsuo at some point in the future. I have not seen, I think they did a recent sort of a reboot kind of a thing of it. But I've seen definitely the first two I've seen so many times. I've seen the first Tetsuo movie probably more times than I should. I really love the first Tetsuo movie. And Tetsuo 2 is, it's interesting. I feel it's less artistically deep as the first movie is. It's more of a straightforward movie, but still really kick-ass movie. I have not seen the Tetsuo the Bullet Man. That's the one I haven't seen, but I will check it out. But really fun movies, crazy. Next movie on the list that I'm talking about with reviews is one that got hyped up quite a bit, and then the hype went away really fast. Which is Fried Berry, which was on Shudder for a while, which I'm going to put in my first. It's my first of the movies that I'll give 3 stars to. And again, 3 stars is a movie that I enjoyed, and I did enjoy Fried Berry. It's kind of hard to enjoy Fried Berry because it's not really a movie. It's just more along the lines of a collection of scenes. If you haven't seen it, it's a movie about a alien that takes over the form of a completely bottomed out drug addict. And the movie is basically this alien in the form of a drug addict wandering around. I think it's in England. I'm not sure if it's England or where it's set. So if it's set somewhere else, sorry. But it is a very wild movie, and it's kind of like a slice of life movie where it's kind of he goes from different encounter to different encounter, and experiences human life in an interesting way. But yeah, it was cool. I don't think I would ever watch it again, but it was definitely a really interesting movie to watch. It's a little overly long. It did not need to be as long as it is. I definitely think that it needed some trimming up in the middle, but it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. The ending the ending has this weird emotional resolution that I don't think is earned in the slightest bit. But I enjoyed it. Fried Berry was a fun time killer and definitely something really interesting to watch. So you won't be mad at it if you watch it. I don't think you'll be ecstatic, but you'll definitely enjoy it. It's a trip. It's a trip of a movie. The next movie down with 3 stars as well, too. Another movie I gave 3 stars to, I think is a little bit more obscure because I haven't seen many people talk about it. It's a movie called Too Late. Too Late, and it's more of a comedy than it is a horror film, but it definitely has a horror element to it. It's about a stand-up comedian that has been around for 100 years, and he is alive because he's sort of a vampire thing. He's a weird kind of a vampire thing in that he swallows you whole, and they have a great a practical effect where he unhinges his jaw and he just swallows people entirely into him, and a pretty cool effect. And he has an assistant that helps him, and she's kind of like a comedian that's trying to reach that next level and trying to become famous, and working for him is kind of helping but not. And again, sort of a character study of those two. And again, I really liked it. I enjoyed it, but it was kind of an average thing. It very similar to Werewolves Within. I feel as if it had a great setup. It had a great finale. The finale was fantastic, but in the middle, it kind of just spins its wheels a little bit. It's just kind of trying to figure out exactly what kind of a movie it is. It doesn't seem to quite know what it wants to be. But I did like what it was. I just kind of wished that it figured it out a little bit sooner. So, hi Katie, how you doing? Kat wants to know about the Children of the Corn prequel from last year. Was that the I'm not sure. Was that the Children of the Corn one that I last watched? Was the one that forgetting his name now? Gulager, the guy that made Feast. He made a Children of the Corn movie, which I watched, and I actually had as a part of a actually had the most recent Children of the Corn movie, which I'm trying to find out what it was now here. Children of the Corn Runaway was the one I watched, but I think it looks like you're talking about one from 2020, which I have not seen. That one I haven't seen, but I have seen the Children of the Corn Runaway. It's the most recent Corn movie that I have seen. But yeah, I'll have to do an update on Children of the Corn apparently. So, morning, Uncle Pete. How's it going, buddy? Good to see you. And real quick, Domingos wants to know about an unanswered question on Cabin in the Woods. That's definitely one of the movies I do want to cover on unanswered questions, but I don't have it on the schedule as of yet. Lots of other very cool stuff. There's a this is a big week for unanswered questions. Tomorrow I am reposting that damn Prince of Darkness video that got pulled down with some changes into it to kind of buffer it. It has been up. It's been up and scheduled for about 5 or 6 days now, and no one has copyright claimed it. So apparently it will be going through. We'll see. But tomorrow, if you haven't watched the Prince of Darkness unanswered questions, it will be back up. It does have me throughout the entire video, screen in front. So I did have to do some weird tweaking to it. I think it would be entertaining if you want to watch it again. Go ahead and watch it again. It deserves a rewatch. But and then on Friday, you do have a very special unanswered questions video coming out that I'm very excited about. It might be kind of obvious if you know what movie's coming out this Friday. But yes, there's a very cool unanswered questions video coming out that I'm very excited about. And then next month is going to be another very cool unanswered questions video in which I will be visiting the locations that the movie was shot in. I love doing location shoots. So it's always fun to go to those locations. So that's going to be one of those where where I'll be talking about the movie and answering the questions. And in between, you will be seeing me at the locations that the movie is filmed at. Noah's Shark is a movie that Mark Polonia is making, and I'm not looking forward to that one, of course, although I am I'm currently in the middle of watching a Mark Polonia double feature for a list video that I'm doing for the ending of September. It's a very fun list movie, but yeah, there is some Polonia in there. The weird thing is I actually don't mind Polonia's films. It's Dustin Ferguson's movies that I don't want to ever watch. But yeah, we'll get there. The next movie on my list with 3 stars. Next thing I watched this one about a month ago. I did watch the movie Benny Loves You, which got pretty hyped up on some of the things. I think Bloody Disgusting had like a bunch of promotion for it. But yeah, Benny Loves You is a movie about a guy that has a cursed puppet doll thing that it's sort of like a hug me, tickle me Elmo kind of a looking doll that is obsessed with him and just kills anybody that does him wrong. And it's fun. It's cute. Again, I gave it 3 stars because it was entertaining. The budget is sort of an issue. It was made pretty cheaply. I admire that it was made. I admire that it was made that cheaply. But it definitely holds it back at times. And it does go into it definitely goes into some weird territories near the ending that I thought were an interesting kick. It's worth a watch. Benny Loves You was entertaining. It's just there's not really that much in it that's that clever or interesting. It kind of feels sort of like a little bit of a run of the mill kind of a movie. I never felt like I was watching anything that I hadn't seen before, but it was entertaining. I enjoyed it. To the person that asked what my favorite Peter Jackson movie is, it's always going to be either Dead Alive or Brain Dead, whichever one you want to call it. That movie is just amazing. I love it. I used to be, when I was younger, I was a hardcore Peter Jackson fan. Not to get all hipster on you all, but I rented Bad Taste like when it was a new release, and was completely into it and was just like, oh my God, I gotta find out who this guy is. And fell in love with his movies. Bad Taste is such a great flick to watch. It's so much fun. And then trying to find Meet the Feebles when it came out was always a tough challenge. Meet the Feebles, another great movie, is so much fun. But then Brain Dead was the one that really nailed it down. It's like the perfect blend of his sense of humor and actually a storyline that works and flows the whole way through. I love all of them, but I think Dead Alive or Brain Dead again is the one that he really nails that emotional core of things with his characters. Great stuff. I kind of wish we had a return to that Peter Jackson. In terms of, because Peter Jackson, I still think he still makes good stuff, but he's just kind of wrapped up in himself. And I just really wish that he shortened everything. All of his movies need to be a little bit shorter, especially for the past 10, but oh well. I will say that I'm a big one I really love is the one that no one ever talks about, which is the Peter Jackson movie called Forgotten Silver, which was a fake documentary he did about a fake filmmaker. And it was very charming. If you haven't seen Forgotten Silver, I recommend checking that out. Very, very cool. Next movie I'm talking about that I watched this year, as we're starting to get into the bad movies that I saw. This first one wasn't that bad, and it's called Fraser Park Recut. Fraser Park Recut. It's a found footage movie, and found footage is a genre that can be really great when done right, or pretty awful if it's done wrong. And this is somewhere in the middle. They actually do some good things with this. I will say that I feel as if this was a pretty recent movie. It was from 2017. I feel like that they had seen Creep, the movie Creep with whatever. We've all seen Creep, and the sequel. It's like they watched that and said, we can make that, because it's a very similar thing. It's a couple of guys that go out to see to make a movie out in the woods, and they find a guy online to be in the movie, and they go up, and that guy is crazy, but his craziness is very subtle, and you don't quite know if his craziness is for the camera or if he is really crazy. It's basically Creep again. Yes, Mark Duplass. There you go. There's the name of the guy. It's that movie. Almost very similar, but it is done well. They did a good job with it. Some of the acting is a little sketchy at times. Acting with found footage movie is really hard, because I think it's tough enough to act, but it's very tough to act as if you're being real without it coming off as acting. So it's a tough thing to pull off. But I wasn't upset about it. Like, it wasn't that sort of a bad movie where afterwards it'd be like, meh. But it was okay. But I wouldn't quite give it in a three-star category. I wouldn't watch it again. Okay, now we're going down to the worst movies. So at 2 stars. 2 stars. This first one is actually one that I reluctantly give 2 stars to. And it's Grizzly 2: The Revenge. And the story about this movie, if you haven't seen it, is amazing, because there was a movie from the 70s, was a Jaws knockoff called Grizzly. They started to make a sequel to it, but the sequel was never finished, and the movie sat on a shelf for 40 years. Incomplete. It was an incomplete movie, not enough footage. Somebody decided that they wanted to finish the movie, because the movie notoriously is one of the earliest first ever film roles of George Clooney, Charlie Sheen, and Laura Dern. All three of them are in the movie as basically kids. They're like teenagers. They're in the movie for one scene. They're in the same scene together, and they all get killed in like the first 5 minutes. So I don't quite know why somebody thought that that was worth making a movie about. It's so terrible. It's so bad, and it's so hard to watch because it's very clear that they did not have enough. They didn't have enough footage to make a movie, and what they shot to kind of pad it out is very odd, because a lot of times it was a lot of just like there's like scenic footage, and it goes from being very low resolution filmed being like high def camera. Everything looks all shiny and bright, and everything is so mismatched. And then the weird thing is the movie is supposed to take place over a weekend, but I don't quite know because the sun comes up and down 7 times. It's very, very strange, and it's the most disjointed I've ever felt watching a movie, because we're just like characters that have storylines just vanish completely because obviously they couldn't get them back 40 years later to finish their footage, so they're just written out of the movie. They just their point has nothing to do with it. But yeah, no, not a great movie. It's interesting to watch. From a filmmaker aspect of it, it's interesting to watch from the point of view of how did they put this together. Because when I was watching it, I wasn't really focusing on the movie itself, and more so just like, okay, how did this project come to be a solid thing? And yeah, it just doesn't work. That'd be the only reason why I would really recommend watching it, is if you were like really curious of watching it and trying to figure out like how they put it together and what was old and what was new footage. Beyond that, forget it. But comparable at 2 stars, the movie that I would also give 2 stars to, is and man, I don't know, this might set off some comments here, but is Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead, which I just thought was a painful, dreadful slog of a movie. The only reason why I gave it 2 stars is because I thought that the intro scene, like the whole setup for everything, was cool. It was like seeing the whole Vegas thing happen, I thought was pretty interesting. But oh my God, what a mess this movie was, and what an overly long, boring, painful movie to watch. I suppose maybe you could kind of cut it down into an hour and a half fun movie, possibly. But I don't quite know. I still think even if you would have cut out a full hour or so of Army of the Dead, I still feel as if it would be kind of a crappy zombie movie. It just does not work at all. The visual aspects of it are painful to me. That weird focus thing he did, it just doesn't work. The characters all just felt like stock characters. And then the weird things Mike Bell pointed out, why introduce all these things like robo zombies and time loop stuff. It was not necessary. It wasn't necessary because it didn't feel like the type of movie that had that stuff in there. I like movies that have unanswered questions, obviously, but your unanswered questions of your movie, of your mysteries of the movie, have to actually sort of feel like they're from the movie that is around them. And this one does not. It does not. There's no purpose for a robot zombie to be in that movie whatsoever. There's none. So having it in there is just silly. All of it was silly. It was a waste of. I should have learned my lesson with Zack Snyder movies by now to just stay away. But zombie stuff, I have a hard time saying no to, like, apparently. So I did not watch that. And hey, speaking of zombie stuff, going down onto the next one on the list, we're going into the worst 2 movies that I've seen this year. Here's a zombie movie. This is one that I didn't even finish. It's pretty rare that I don't finish a movie, but this is one I just gave up on. And I said, you know what? I'm not giving this any more of my time. And it is a zombie movie called Range 15. And it is quite possibly one of the most annoying things that I've seen in the past 5 or 6 years. I don't know if I would call it the worst thing that I've seen in the past 5 or 6 years, because it was not like it was made really incompetently, but it's just I hated every character. I hated all the lines of dialogue. Everything about it was them trying to be funny, but it was trying too hard to be funny. It was like extreme frat boy humor, but like not. It's kind of like when you know that guy in your group that thinks he's hilarious and he's constantly joking, and everyone just shoots him a look. It's just like, dude, shut up. But this. I couldn't get through it. I stopped. I was just like, you know what? I don't want to give these people any more of my time, and I turned it off. There was no merit to it for me at all, so I passed. But the worst movie that I've seen this year, and I did actually stick it out to the end. I don't know why I actually stuck it out to the end, but I did. Absolute worst thing that I've seen is a movie called Hungerford. It's from 2014, and it's British. It's again a found footage movie, and it is sort of zombies, but it's like zombie aliens. And it's the worst thing I've seen in a long time. It's so terrible. But it's basically just like sort of aliens are coming down, but they're taking people over and sort of turning them into zombie things that just attack people randomly. But it's so terrible. It's a group of people filming each other for no reason. It's one of the biggest complaints I have with found footage movies that always comes up is, why are they still filming? Why are they still filming? You need to establish a really good reason for why they're still filming. And the one excuse, and I hate this. I hate when found footage movies have this, because when found footage was like super popular, like back in the early 2010s, when it was like crazy popular, where every movie was found footage. I feel like everyone said the same thing. Why are you still filming? Because people need to see this. And when they say that, and then that suddenly is the reason. It's like, oh, that's why he wants everyone to see what's going on. So that becomes an excuse for filming everything. And this movie falls into that trap. It's like, why are you still filming this? Because people need to see this. They need to know. No, they don't. This movie has a scene. Let me break this down for you. This movie has a scene where they're just standing around the kitchen, and they're filming each other for no reason. They're just filming each other because the guy's filming him and his friends, whatever. Someone comes to the door. It's like a construction guy, right? The construction guy then smashes down the door, breaks the door down, and starts physically attacking them and trying to kill them, right? He's trying to murder them. They're fighting him back. He's in their house, and they're like fighting, and this guy's like attacking them horribly, right? So then they're fighting, and then the one guy in the fighting, because this guy's like killing, the one guy grabs a knife and stabs the construction guy, right? Which kills him. So this guy is dead on the ground. They have video footage of the man smashing into their house and trying to strangle the girl that lives there. And the guy then trying to push the guy away and then grabbing the knife in desperation. All of this is on video. The guy's dead on the ground, and they're like, what are we going to do? No one's going to believe us. We need to get rid of the body. We can't call the police. And then they take the body and they hide it in a dumpster. And they figure, well, no one can pin us for it if they don't know. But then they make sure to film themselves doing it. So what they did was legal, and they wouldn't have been questioned for it if they showed the video. But then they did commit a crime and they videoed themselves doing it. It's just it's so dumb. Everything about it was really, really dumb. I do not recommend it to anybody ever for any reason at all. Worst movie I've seen this year. Yeah, so there you go. That's what is that? 11 movies. So 11 movies that I've seen that I ranked in there. I skipped out some of the things that I've seen just because they weren't as interesting to talk about. Like I saw Beaster Day, which was like a killer bunny rabbit movie, which was not really worth talking about. This other stuff. And then I watched a movie called Spiral, which was not the Saw one, which was okay. Again, okay, but it's just not. There really wasn't much in it that was worth talking about. A couple of things I've seen that are not horror that I liked. I did watch the movie Nobody. Nobody, which was a lot. I thought that was very, very fun with Bob Odenkirk. It's fun seeing Bob Odenkirk play a badass. If you told me actors that you thought were badasses that could kill an entire room full of people, Bob Odenkirk would not have been one of the people that I would have listed off. And the movie did a great job in convincing me that yes, he is. He can do that. I rewatched a movie from a long time ago, which was Kids in the Hall, Brain Candy. Which, if you're not familiar with Kids in the Hall, they were a sketch comedy group from the early 90s, and they made a movie that was not very well received, but I actually think it's brilliant. I think it's very funny. Watching it now actually holds up even more so than it used to be. But great movie. I recommend it. And I watched The Suicide Squad, and I enjoyed it. With James Gunn behind the wheel, I was kind of hoping to enjoy it more. I was hoping that I would love it, and I didn't love it, but I did enjoy it. I thought it was very good, but not quite great. I'd say it's 3.5 stars. 3.5 stars, not quite 4. I am looking forward to The Green Knight. That's one I've actually been waiting to watch because I feel like Christy would really like that one. I feel like she would really enjoy that. So I'm waiting for her on that one to watch with her together. AJ asked if I've ever seen The Video Dead from the 80s. Absolutely. Have I seen The Video Dead? Man, is that a bizarre movie? That's one. I have a bunch of movies that I would love to talk about in a list video, and it's like, okay, well, what's the right list for me to be able to talk about that? And that is one that I would absolutely love to have in there somewhere. I think if I ever do like an old, like an obscure zombie movies, because I feel like Video Dead is it's probably one of the more well-known obscure zombie movies because it's not quite on the level of like Romero Dead or anything like that, or even Return of the Living Dead, but I feel like it is a pretty well-known movie, but not enough. So I would love to talk about Video Dead at some point. It's very, very fun. I'll probably talk about a movie like that, and there's another movie from that same era, well, a little bit later, I guess, because I think it was either late 80s or early 90s, called The Dead Next Door. That was pretty cool. It was made for like $50. Weird. I have a weird zombie movie that I want to talk about called Shatter Dead. Has anybody seen the movie Shatter Dead? It's really weird, but it's one that I would love to talk about because I used to have a bootleg of it back in the day. Here's an interesting story. This is a side note here. But quite a while ago, I used to trade bootleg videotapes. That's how old this story is, because I'm talking about bootleg videotapes. But I used to mail bootleg tapes to. I used to have a guy in Texas and a guy in Maine that were my connections. They were the guys I talked to, and we would trade tapes. And it was a very unique situation for me because the guy in Texas was diehard horror fan, complete horror nut. And he was interested in Hong Kong action movies and Japanese horror. And then the guy in Maine was super into Hong Kong action movies, but he was interested in getting into horror. Neither of them knew each other, but they knew. But I somehow got to know these guys, and we would trade tapes, and it would just be great because whatever the movie the guy in Maine wanted, I would then get from the guy in Texas and swap him for movies the guy had made. And I just became the middleman. But I got all the tapes because I would get the tapes, make a copy, and then send the copy off. But then I would have all of these. So my bootleg collection of video cassettes was just insane. We just stacked up and stacked up and stacked up. So I would have all these weird, crazy horror movies. And yeah, some of them were not great, and some of them weren't that important. Like some of them were work prints. Like I had a Return of the Living Dead work print that was pretty cool. But it's the movie in an unfinished state, but it had some scenes in there that I have not ever seen. Like it had the original Return of the Living Dead ending, which I've not seen yet, which was a much happier ending. The ending on this work print was that the bomb still went off, everybody still died, but instead of re-showing that footage of the rain coming down and re-showing that zombies are coming up in another area, they basically had a news report, and the news report, which was similar to the news report they used, talked about how they dug up all the soil and they put it in a big train bed and shipped it off somewhere. So that was it. Very different kind of an ending, but I guess similar in concept, but it just didn't have that skeleton footage, and it was less of a here's the follow up and everybody's doomed. But yeah, and then I would have things like Shatter Dead would get sent to me, which was a weird zombie movie, but it was like a strange zombie movie where the zombies still had all their faculties and they were still people, and it was like they were trying to integrate them into society, but society obviously wasn't accepting them. Interesting movie, very bizarre, but then oddly enough, about an hour into the movie or so, it just completely has like a random hardcore sex scene that was very, like, as you were watching the movie, it was a pretty low-key movie. I don't even think there was that much nudity in it, but then all of a sudden it's like a hardcore sex scene that's like treated as run-of-the-mill, like just matter-of-factly. It's just like, oh, okay, all right, I guess that's what's happening with this, but there you go. Converse Montana, thank you for being a big fan. I appreciate it. Thank you for watching. I like it. Antlers, I'm interested in. I think my interest has started to wane because I feel like I've been waiting for that movie for like 900 times. And hey, real quick, Michael Laughlin said 80s videos with awesome covers. So I want to show you this real quick because I love this. I got this book not that long ago. This is amazing. This is a book by Thomas Hodge called VHS Video Cover Art. And holy crap, if you look at this, all that is video box art from the 1980s. It's like categorized in by genre. So you've got like horror movies, comedy movies. Here's a horror section. You got Hollywood Hot Tubs and war, like action movies. Where's the horror stuff? They even have kids movies in here, thrillers. But oh my God, I went through this book and I was just like, okay, I want this. And what's weird is that they pretty much use all the British titles. So some of the movies I was just like, what is this? I don't know what this is. And then I would look it up and it's like, oh, that's just this movie, but with the British title. So I mean, there was a couple in there, but look at that. Look at that Black Roses cover. Oh man, good stuff. It's very different than the cover that we got. I recommend this. This is a great book. If you were into really cool video box art, I highly recommend that. Another book that I just actually tracked down that I used to have probably 20 years ago that I used to love and use as a resource for things, and I just found it again, and I've been going through it as a resource for movies that I may have forgotten about, is this right here. It's called Video Trash and Treasures. Which is great. It's just a big directory of a whole bunch of trash and exploitation films, mostly from the 80s, because this book is from, what year is this from? I bet you this book is from 1980 something. This book is from 1989. And so most of these movies were like things that were rather current at the time. But yeah, it's good stuff. Another great book. I've been pouring through it, trying to find things that that I used to recall and remember, to find some old things. One of the videos that I'm working on right now, I'll give you a fun input there. I'm working on a list of lost 80s slasher movies. So yeah, that's been a lot of fun, because there's some slasher flicks from the 80s that I don't feel people talk about. There's a couple on this list that are absolutely need to be seen, and there's one or two that need to be seen to be believed. But yeah, very good stuff. I recommend that book if you can track it down. I know I had a hard time. I found it on Amazon in a used version, and I guess they had a new version listed on there for like $200 and some. But yeah, check that book out if you haven't got a chance. And that the video art cover one is just amazing. Maybe you know about this. Do you recall a movie poster from back in the day with a bloody skeleton bride? I have a memory but can't connect it to a title. A bloody skeleton bride. First thing that pops into my head is The Woman in White, but I don't think that's it. I don't think that. I think that has a different kind of a thing. But does that ring a bell to anybody else? A bloody skeleton bride on the cover? It's not sticking out to me, but yeah, I will think on it and see if it comes up. But yeah, I don't know. It's and what else have I seen this year that I thought have been pretty good? There has not been much. I feel as if this year was a bit rough. I watched a movie called I Used to Go Here that I thought was going to be very good, but was not. Had a lot of people in it that I really like. I had Jermaine Clement in it from What We Do in the Shadows, and from the oh my God, what is it called? Anyhow, regardless, and it has Jillian Jacobs from Community in it, but I thought it was going to be great, but it was not. It was kind of run-of-the-mill stuff. But and my other disappointment was I watched a movie called Screaming in High Heels, which was a documentary about the Scream Queen era and focused very heavily on Linnea Quigley, Monique Gabrielle, and Brink Stevens, which are three of the great of the Scream Queen era. But the documentary ended up being very surface level and was not that big of a fan of. So it just didn't really give us that much insight to that whole era, and I was kind of bummed out. I wish they got a little deeper. So Lake Plunket wants to know if I've seen Don't Breathe. I haven't seen the second one. I have seen the first one, and it's okay. I feel like the longer that movie goes on, the less interested I got. I loved the setup, but then when it got to the weird twist near the ending of it all, I kind of checked out a little bit. I thought it just got a little bit too ridiculous. And it was just one of those movies where I wasn't quite sure who I was supposed to be rooting for. I have a tough time where movies kind of give you their main characters as kind of dicks, and then have you kind of like, I think you're supposed to kind of cheer for them a little bit, but I don't know. I had a hard time. Wasn't rooting for anybody in that movie. The female character of that movie was not that pleasant of a person. Her boyfriend wasn't pleasant. I didn't really care if they survived or didn't. I didn't hate it. And I didn't dislike it. It was fine. I'd probably give it 2.5 stars if I was ranking it. But there you go. Yeah. The turkey baster scene, I think, is when it really turns completely into left field of like, what am I watching here and why am I watching it? But and I don't mind a bit of like dark turns on things, but I don't know. It just lost me. But Brookster says you should talk about My Name is Bruce. Yes, the Bruce Campbell one. I do want to talk about it. That's Bruce did a couple of like fun little movies out there, which I would love to talk about, and it's fun to try and figure out a way to throw that in there. Again, a movie that I would like to put on some sort of a list at some point, but I'm not quite sure it fits in anything that I've locked in yet. But I'll definitely. There's so many of these movies that I would like to talk about, and there's so many things I do want to talk about in the future. But like I said, Well, I'm going to sign off in a few minutes, but I do want to give you guys some sneak previews. I'll give you some sneaks about what's coming up in the future because I'm working on some things pretty feverishly right now that I'm very excited about. This Friday, like as I said, you're getting a Unanswered Questions video that, again, might be kind of obvious with what's coming out on Friday. Monday, I am giving you a sci-fi mini timeline that I can guarantee you is even if it's a movie that you haven't heard of, I guarantee you it's one of the most interesting things that is on this channel. It's one of the most fascinating things that I was on there. Next Friday is a new timeline, a new horror timeline with a movie, with a series that I've been looking to talk about for a while now that's a little bit anthology oriented. And then here's the other thing. Mondays in September have a theme. Every Monday in September will be movies about cryptids. I'm kind of looking forward to that. I've been watched all the movies. Some of them are fun, some of them are terrible, but each Monday will focus on movies about a different cryptid. And I have my good friend, the Crypto Hunter, who's going to be helping me out and giving explanations of these cryptids. So looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot of fun. Finally, I will tell you that on October 1st, hopefully, finally doing that freaking Bond timeline. Almost 2 years in the making. James Bond timeline hopefully will come out in time for the new Bond movie. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if it gets bumped again. But yeah, been trying to finish this James Bond timeline for such a long time. Also, finishing up this Ghostbuster timeline, which will come out in November when the movie comes out. That's another one that I've been trying to work out there. I'm trying to do a couple more updates for you guys. You guys seem to enjoy the Saw update, so I'm trying to do some more updates in there. Definitely going to do a Child's Play update in the very near future. I think I'm going to do a Conjuring update as well too. So got some update videos happening in there because I think there's been three or four Conjuring movies since I did my Conjuring timeline. I think there's been a new Annabelle movie, a Conjuring movie, The Nun, and I think the La Llorona movie. I think also it's so there's a lot to talk about in an update for the Conjuring universe. So that'll be on there. That'll be out maybe in October. October is going to be all like horror, lots of horror. Obviously, a lot of good stuff there. Evil Dead's 40th anniversary is coming up. Obviously, we're going to do something for that as well too. I have a video that's on the 40th anniversary that's Evil Dead themed. So, well, that's it. Thank you guys. Katie said that she loves the random live stuff, and I like doing it. It's just kind of when I'm just chilling and have not much to do, just pop on. Sometimes I have panel guests on with me, but today was kind of impromptu, so just popped it on there. And Cat47 asking for Ringu. I know. I will. Ring is it's something I'm definitely going to do. I keep on bumping it. So, but I will do it shortly. Well, thank you guys very much. I'm going to go back to editing. I have a bunch of stuff that I'm editing now in the process, so I will see you shortly. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.